When people talk about Greece, they rarely mention Athens, but we're here to tell you it's the most underrated stop in Greece.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
This is the Travel FOMO podcast. My name is Hillary Houghton, and I am here with my husband and my very own Greek god. My husband, Jamin.
Couchiopolis or something like that.
Jaminopolis. Oh, man. You didn't see that one coming, right?
No.
I always try to throw a zinger at you when I introduce you. We are in the middle of season 7, and we're sharing our insights from Mediterranean Europe, my favorite part of Europe. Oh, my goodness. I keep saying that. And I know I keep reacting that way with like, oh, my goodness. But it just gets so good and it doesn't stop. And Athens was certainly a surprise. I think we felt like it was just a stop that was going to happen along the way. Right. And it turned into a real joy for us.
Yeah, I agree. It was really cool. It was like, well, we have to fly into Athens. We'll be there. We might as well see it.
Yeah.
And it was pretty incredible.
It was so cool. And the thing that surprised me the most was how it was, you have like all of the ancient history there merged with a really modern city.
Yeah. Yeah, there is like a lot of that. And I was surprised at how entangled it all is.
Yes.
I feel like some places you go and there's like, well, like Strasbourg, there's La Petite France, and it's all old and it's all there. And it's this one little section of the city. And you get outside of that and then there's the modern parts of the city.
Right.
But here it's all just interwoven together.
Yeah. There's not like a district that's like a modern district and like an old district. It's like it's all woven together, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved the energy there too because they were super late night people, which at that point we were like really getting exhausted on our trip. So we didn't leverage that as much as I wish we would have. But you could just feel the energy build and build and build as the night went on. Yeah. And it's so fun. Just such a fun experience. And I didn't know that about the culture, really.
I didn't know that either. You know, Italy's that way too. Like big cities in Italy, it's, you know, the sun goes down, everybody starts coming out to have a good time. But I did not expect that of Athens. And it's definitely that way. Maybe even more so than Italy. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy to say.
It's like the further south you go, you got Spain, you got Italy, you got Greece, and all of those places really thrive on late nights.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, and we got in late our first night. So we were like right on top of it all, just really blending in with the culture. Because we arrived, like our flight came in from Rome and we'd spent the whole day in Rome, like hanging out. And then we went to the airport, hopped on the plane, got to Athens around 11 p.m., which is kind of late. We wouldn't normally book that late.
Well, and we didn't book it that late.
Oh,
it got changed.
Got changed.
Yeah, our flight is actually supposed to be like a morning flight.
Oh,
and
that sounds more like us.
Yeah, and Ryanair pulled a fast one on us.
Yep.
And moved it to a really late night flight.
I forgot. Yeah. That's right. And it was a crazy flight. I was not used to, so most of the late night flights that I've been on, they turn down the lights, everything's really quiet, you might sleep a little bit.
Just tuck you into bed.
Oh my goodness, this was so different. The lights were on really bright the whole time. People were talking, but not just talking, they were like standing up, turning around and talking to each other and like making conversations in the aisles. Like it was just like social hour.
Yeah, it was like being on a bus in the sky. Like there was just people everywhere, kids everywhere, people walking up and down the aisles.
Yeah.
And just kind of mayhem.
Yeah, they were selling us stuff too. I remember they were selling lottery tickets. They were selling perfume. And then there were all kinds of announcements that would happen and it'd be like in English and all these different languages. And I think for the most part, they were just trying to sell us stuff.
Yes.
And it was just constant noise and announcements, and I was just surprised by that. I didn't know, so that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised by that too. I was of the same mindset that you are. We're going to get on this plane, it's going to get off the ground, and everybody's going to sleep for a couple hours until we land, and then we'll all like sleepily make our way off. But it was not the case.
Nope. It was like the party had started. And actually, once we landed, it was like the party had really started.
Yeah.
And then we like get off the plane, and I was so surprised too because it wasn't really clear where to go after that, and we kept looking for customs, and we could never find customs. Right. And we just ended up like walking out of the airport with our bags. That was wild. I
was really surprised by that too. I think, we've watched several seasons of Locked Up Abroad, and I always kind of like anticipate that getting into any country is going to be this big ordeal where they like interrogate me and want to go through my stuff. And, and so like, I'm always ready. I'm always like, got my bag, and I'm like, hey, look through all my stuff. You could see all my like shorts and deodorant. You can like have at it, search it. And I was just shocked that we got off the plane and out through the airport, and I was like, that there's cabs right out there. Yeah. I guess we're in.
Yeah. Like, I know. It was
got a passport in my hand. Like, it's anybody want to see this?
Anybody want to stamp this passport? Okay. I kept thinking like my passport would at least get stamped. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, I've been to Greece. But no, none of that. None of that. And in fact, I was afraid it was going to be a problem when we went to leave, because they'd be like, there's no record of you in the country, so hold up. And so I didn't exactly know how that would work. But I guess if you were driving into the country, you wouldn't have a stamped passport anyway. So yeah, whatever. Well, no, maybe you would. I don't know. If you're riding a train in, I don't know.
It surprises me how much you worry about like someone letting you out of their country, because you did the same thing with Canada.
Oh,
You're like, Canada's not going to let us out.
TBD, guys. That's coming up in a few more episodes.
Make sure you're subscribed.
I always have something to worry. Crossing borders. I think we did watch too much Locked Up Abroad. You're right. Yeah. We watched too much. And
it's just lingering there.
And now I'm just always concerned that I might possibly be smuggling drugs. Oh my gosh. But the cool part was, it was late, and so we got a cab, and our cab driver was driving like a bat out of hell, so it didn't take long to get to our Airbnb. He was wild, and at first I second guessed myself because I thought maybe everybody drives like this here. But then I started noticing that like, no, nobody else does. Just him.
Just him.
So yeah. But he got us there really fast, and we actually were really tired. And then he like showed up to our place, and he was like, "Are you sure this is the right place?" Because there was like graffiti well, I assume it's because there's graffiti everywhere. It felt a little janky and I don't know, like rough, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, and I remember the numbers weren't very clear on the building. Right. And there was a lot of buildings that looked very similar to each other. And I think he was thinking like he was going to take us to a hotel or something like that. Yeah. And we were in an Airbnb. And so he was dropping us off in this kind of dicey looking neighborhood. And we were like, we're sure. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately we got in no problem. And the whole like self check-in was like not a thing. Like we had everything we needed. It all looked right and made sense. And before you know it, we were upstairs in a really nice apartment.
Yeah, it was great. It was really nice. All the furniture was nice. All the furniture was comfortable, which is kind of rare for an Airbnb, I feel like. I feel like you get like one piece of comfortable furniture, and that's a used piece, and then the rest is like, what does IKEA have that is on sale?
Oh, funny.
And like, so, but this place was nice. Everything was great. Yeah. Super clean.
We had this amazing view of the Acropolis.
Yes.
The highlight. So great. Like we had this amazing patio outside, and we're like, I don't know what floor we were on. We were pretty high up. And we had this great view. Like the Acropolis was like eye level.
Yeah.
Like I mean, through some of these streets and stuff, but you could see it all lit up at night, which was really magical.
Yes.
And if you do go to Athens, just know that there are a lot of Airbnbs that offer you that kind of view.
Mm-hmm.
It was something where there were several we could have chosen from, and it's incredible. Definitely take advantage of that because it really adds to your experience.
I agree with that a lot. And the Acropolis is up on top of this hill. Like you said, they light it really well at night. It's really cool. And if you do have that view of it, it's just a constant reminder of where you are. And really, I feel like a lot of times if you go to a hotel or an Airbnb, if you can't see out, you can kind of get in this mode, particularly if you travel a lot, of like you're just in another place, but you kind of don't realize where you are, and so you don't enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
But with that constant reminder, like you never kind of leave that mode, like you're always in it.
Yeah, even when you're in the shower. We
Yeah.
had like this little window, and you could still see the lit up Acropolis at night while you're taking a shower through this little window. And I was like, I mean, I would include that as a selling point.
Yeah, it was really cool. I liked it.
Yeah, well, and it was really a highlight to the Acropolis because the next morning we went up and went on a run there, and it was really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, our Airbnb was really close where it was runnable distance to that, and we ran to it, and to get to it, you sort of wind your way up around the mountain. So we ran completely all the way around it and wound up kind of like a candy cane, like working our way up to Mars Hill and the Acropolis, and that was
we didn't
really
know
cool.
it was Mars Hill.
No, we didn't know it at the time.
We found that out later, but yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that run, and you can see the Acropolis the whole way because it's up on top of this hill that you're going to, and you're kind of going through a neighborhood and by some restaurants and things like that, and then into this park, and as you're working your way up. And it was incredible to me that a lot of the streets and the sidewalks were marble. I thought that was amazing.
It was really fancy.
Yes. And we're talking about like white marble, like you would see in a nice hotel, like in the floor, like the floors of the lobby of a really nice hotel, is the sidewalks that we're running on.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that.
Yeah. Nobody mentions that. You think of honestly, I think of Athens and I think of it being this really old, hot city. Yeah. And it was so much more than that. It was like really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That run was really awesome. So many great photos that we have of the Acropolis from that run.
Yeah. Well, and just to some things that I learned along the way was that the Acropolis is really just the name of the hill itself that everything sits on. So on top of the Acropolis, then you have the ancient Parthenon building and some other Greek ruins. And so just to kind of give you guys some context, this old hill with all this important stuff on it, this important ancient ruins, that hill is called the Acropolis. And then within it, there's some really important pieces to it. And then right next to it, kind of on your way up, was the Mars Hill location that you were talking about. Will you tell people a little bit more about that?
So Mars Hill was kind of where there used to be like a courtroom of Athens where like the elders would get together and make decisions, and it has this view of the Parthenon and so on, and it was kind of an area where people would gather and a lot of important stuff happened. If you are familiar with the Bible, in Acts, Paul the apostle goes to Athens at one point and preaches a sermon from Mars Hill. And so it's kind of this place where everyone would come together and would sort of be this meeting of the minds, during all of Greek's heightened time of philosophy. That's where a lot of those conversations would take place. So like Plato and Aristotle and those would be there in this area. And now it's just kind of a pile of rocks. But that's where everyone would kind of gather, kind of like this city square almost.
Yeah. It's also called Areopagus Hill, aka Mars Hill. And Mars comes from Ares. Ares was the god of war. And so I really need to learn a lot more about the Greek gods because it's fascinating, especially being a Christian and knowing how the worshiping of other gods is really spoken about a lot in the Bible. And so I think that's so fascinating, and it helps you understand the context of how the Bible was written and why it was written that way. And so I felt like we learned a lot about that while we were here, but there's still so much more to dig into when it comes to Greek mythology and everything.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Athens and kind of Greece as a whole. In Athens itself, if you're looking for a good food scene, there is a neighborhood for that. They call it the, I think it's Plaka neighborhood, Plaka, and that's where all the foodies should go if you're there.
Yes.
And then also, one thing I thought was really interesting that we learned was that Greek wine is not exported very often. So if you're looking for Greek wine here in America, you're probably it's going to be hard to find.
Right.
And that's just because exporting it is just too expensive for their wineries, but it's really good wine and they invented wine, which is so fun to think about.
That is cool. And I tried fact checking that and I got differing results. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but we were told that.
Okay. I do remember that.
Yes, we were told that, but you see different things different places. But we do know that the Greeks were very early on adapters of wine if they didn't invent it. So, and it was very good. Like we had some while we were there, and the only reason that it's not more popular is it's just really expensive to export.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would probably be sought after other places.
So Parthenon also, so it's one of the ancient ruins that's up on top of the Acropolis, and it's all crumbled and, looks like it's so old and that probably thousands of years ago it started to fall apart. But in reality, it was completely intact until about 300 years ago. It was hit during the war in the 1600s that they had, and after it had been taken over, and it was basically destroyed by gunpowder by an enemy. So anyway, I just think that's kind of fascinating that it lasted so long.
Yes.
Before it was destroyed.
Yeah, absolutely amazing that a building could stand and is still partially standing.
Right.
Despite having been destroyed in 1600s.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Well, and the way they built it was so interesting because the floor of it is like 6 inches taller in the middle, and it makes it look a little bit more, I guess, bigger and more symmetrical. But they did that for a reason, and they did something kind of similar with the pillars to make them look really straight when you look at it, and it makes it look better. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's not as symmetrical as you would think.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too. That it's designed and was designed in ancient times with that thought in mind of we need to make this look, and so we're going to engineer it so that it looks more straight when it actually isn't.
Yeah. Well, and then something else they taught us was that the eyes on the old statues, that a lot of the statues you see, the eyes are usually missing. And the reason why is because there were likely jewels in them or stones that were taken later and repurposed. So it was that's a really expensive. But I just have to stop and think about, can you imagine statues that have rubies in the eyes or emeralds or some kind of amazing gemstone? That would be
in the eyes.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wild. And it makes so much sense when you see statues like that and you see everything's perfect and the hair is perfect and all this, and then the eyes just look weird.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's really strange. But then you find out, it's because they've been plundered, basically. They've been looted, and they would have had jewels there to make them sparkle and appear more real. That would be insane to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, some other fun facts is while we were on a tour, we actually stopped to get some coffee. And one of the popular things there is an iced cappuccino that they call the Freddo cappuccino. So if you're there, be sure to order a Freddo cappuccino. It's really popular, and it's just, it's basically
Did you end
like
up
a
getting
frappuccino.
one while we were there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Yep, we stopped at a coffee shop, and I was like, whatever they're doing, I'll take one of those. And and obviously, it's so warm there, especially during the summer. That was kind of like, it was a no-brainer. Like, of course I want one of those. So.
Yeah. Well, and we also found out that kudos is a Greek term, and it means the glory of victory.
That's right.
So when you give kudos to somebody,
you're giving them the glory of victory.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool too.
You know what? I might have to remember that, because I use kudos all the time, and I might have to just throw it out there,
throw a
I don't know
knowledge
what I would
bomb
say.
on somebody.
Yeah, I'd be like, the glory of victory to you, Jamin.
So, well, actually, kudos means.
Well, I don't know if I'd be that person. What's really funny is that we use so many Greek terms and words and stuff in our vocabulary, and yet we still say it's all Greek to me. And it's like, well, it's kind of funny, because we actually use Greek is a huge Greek words, and language is a really big part of our language.
Yeah, a lot of what we have is rooted in it.
Yeah.
Well, we went later that day on a walking tour where we found out a lot of these cool facts, but it was led by a guy named it was Stavros.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a really good tour guide. He was a lot of fun. He grew up in Greece, but he spoke very good English, and he actually spoke a few different languages, and he kind of polled the group and would basically give his talk in English, and then he would give it in another language, and then I think he did 2 or 3 languages that he would kind of talk to people through as we went on this walking tour. And he just kind of led us around and would just kind of hang out with us and tell us cool stuff about Athens, which I thought was a lot of fun. It wasn't this he really knew his stuff, but it wasn't this memorized speech so much as coming to a spot and standing on a place and being like, and here you see the da 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 da. But he would give you all the facts, but kind of tell it more as a story, or start it at least with something really interesting. And so he was really easy to follow, despite it being 1,000 degrees. And he had a lot of really cool stuff to tell us. Yeah,
it was very informal though, and he informed us that he's not actually qualified to be a tour guide. And he was explaining that I'm not a tour guide, this is just friends walking together. If anybody asks, we're just friends. So I thought that was really funny, that I guess there's some actual criteria or something that comes with being a walking tour guide.
Yeah, so. I think he wasn't certified, but he did a great job anyway. Well, and he explained to us that Greeks that believed that your mind is healthy through the health of your body. And so boys would start in gymnastics really early, and it was required. And men over 18 have to serve in the military for 9 months when you're there. So as a male, you turn 18, you're going into military, and they all do it, which is really interesting. And you have to be in shape to do that. And so it was kind of this idea of fitness is very valued there and sort of reinforced and taught from a really young age, which I thought was really interesting. And, we have so many problems in America that are related to obesity, and it's such a big thing that we deal with here. And over there, they really seem to have this kind of solution for it and just make themselves a lot healthier by really prioritizing it. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. And good. Great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Also, Athens is the birthplace of theater, which I'm a big fan of, guys.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. And Ophelia, I think I'm saying that right. Ophelia is a play that they have in the theater every night in English that you can go watch. And it's right there near the center of town. And we did not do that. I think it's even an outdoor theater. And I really wanted to. We were just fitting in so much stuff. It was so hard. And, but man, looking back, that seems like a really missed opportunity. I'm like bummed about that.
I do remember Athens almost as much as anywhere else was a place that I was like, man, I wish we just had one more day.
For sure.
I wish we just had one more day, because there was so much that to see and do, and we did as much as we could, but man, it would have been great to go see theater in the birthplace of theater.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that one of the facts that he was sharing with us is that classic Athens was originally just like a 2-story kind of city. And there was a law against building taller than the Parthenon. And earthquakes were always a really big concern too. So if I'm remembering things correctly, classic Athens had like 2 stories. And there was like this law against building taller than the Parthenon, and earthquakes were a concern and all of that. But later on, in the 50s and 60s, they kind of embellished to like add some taller buildings. But I just think that's kind of fascinating, because if you look out, like it's not like it's kind of a more horizontal city.
Yeah.
It's like pretty obvious they don't like really build up.
Yes.
So I think that's
well, and there was that one kind of neighborhood that we went through that he walked us through that was like, this is more symbolic of what the city was prior to the 50s and 60s, and it had those restaurants, and we went and drank wine on the steps of one of them, and it's really kind of a little cool part of the city that didn't get built up and didn't get changed, and you can kind of still see how it was back in the day, which was a lot of fun to kind of walk through as well.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool too, because for that reason, and because they don't build very tall there, you really do get to see the Parthenon from so many different angles.
Yeah.
And that's really special.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did put in all these skyscrapers, that would really prohibit it from being such a huge part of the city. And so it makes a lot of sense, and I like it. I think that's unique,
Yeah, it was definitely cool. Well, and he told us a lot about the Greek Orthodox Church. It's very popular there, and is a very big part of the culture, especially in recent years. Like in modern Greece, a lot of people have kind of started to leave the church and move away from it, but through the last few hundred years, like it's been a huge part. And he told us a kind of a lot about that, and we got to go into, on our walking tour, we got to go into a church and see it for ourselves, and that was a cool, unique experience, especially having come from Rome and been in so many Catholic churches. Getting to go into a Greek Orthodox and kind of see how it's a little bit different, I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm. I also loved how they in Greece, they celebrate your name day more than they celebrate your actual birthday, which is kind of fascinating, because honestly, I always imagine them to be the same day. But I guess, maybe there's this process of like naming somebody, and you have a name day, and that becomes like your real celebratory day every year.
Yeah.
So a little different than the way we do it in America with birthdays.
If you're listening to this, you like a good adventure. And if you like a good adventure, you might enjoy following the fights. It all started with Mars and Ashley's bold decision to travel full-time in their converted Sprinter van. Fast forward 6 years, they've seen all 50 states and backpacked countries like Thailand and Guatemala. It's been one daring decision after another, and now they're braving another big adventure, building a creative retreat in the Colorado Rockies. Find out what life could be like when you take risks. Follow the fights on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. But we also got to witness the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and that takes place. It's right in front of Parliament, where they have the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, And it's this really elaborate ceremony with this sort of crazy march that they do and that they have to learn. And we got to be there and witness it. And it's this really kind of selective thing to get to be a part of this guard. You have to be really good looking, and you have to be really tall and really physically fit, and only kind of the most elite / visually appealing soldiers like get to do it, which I thought was really kind of an interesting aspect of it as well.
And I think I know why, because they had to wear some really unique attire. So they had to really be able to sport their skirts with their pom-pom shoes and their white pantyhose and everything. Like, you really got to make it work. So you have to be able to sport the look.
Yeah. Well, I think we got some footage of it that will be in the YouTube video. So if you go check that out, you'll kind of get to see a little more of what we're talking about. But it was a whole thing, but cool to kind of get to witness.
Yeah, and it represents, as you can imagine, just like in America and Washington, D.C., the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier really represents any fallen soldier from war. And so when they do, they guard it religiously, and then they change those guards, and the changing of those guards is the really powerful moment, and it's a real big ceremony. It's very cool.
Yeah. Well, and the military is such a big thing there. A lot of, all males have to serve. And, but I didn't know that there's long-standing conflict between Turkey and Greece. And so the Greeks and the Turks are still kind of feuding, and there's almost daily dogfights over airspace.
Oh, that's right. I didn't know that either.
Like planes shooting at each other almost daily still, and it's just this kind of like squabbling back and forth where they're not really at war, but they don't like each other. And so they're both kind of chippy with each other.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating too.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Yeah. And he was just telling us stories of that, and you're just like, wow, had no idea. I mean, I'm ashamed at how little I know as an American, how little I know about other countries.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this tour really did kind of shine a light on how unaware we are of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was really kind of fun to see, as somebody who has run some marathons, I was really interested in seeing the stadium where marathons really began. So the Panathenaic Stadium, probably butchering that, but it was the first and only stadium to be built from marble. All of the athletes there always had to compete naked, so I'm really glad that I was not this incredible runner from Greece. The games happened every 4 years, just like the Olympics, if you think about it. There was a monetary price during those games, and the wreaths were all made out of silver or gold.
That's cool.
That's really cool. And if you think about it, a lot of you can when you're shopping in Greece, you can find a lot of, especially in Athens, a lot of wreaths that are these gold leaves that women buy and wear just around in Greece, and especially in Athens. I guess it was really Athens that we saw it more than anywhere else, but kind of like a Greek goddess, if you can imagine that. That was something that really came from these games, because you would get a silver or gold wreath. And then some other interesting facts about it. The stadium was reconstructed and became the site of the first revived Olympic Games in 1896. So basically, the modern Olympics was born there at that stadium, which is super cool.
Yeah, very cool. And the site of the original marathon. So there was war in Greece, and at the time Greece was made up of basically city-states. And so Marathon and Athens were fighting I believe the Persians, and they sent a messenger named Phidippides, I believe.
Phidippides.
And he ran to Sparta to ask for help. He ran 200 kilometers to Sparta to ask for help. And the Spartans were in the middle of this feast, and they basically were like, this feast is for the gods. We can't do anything until it's over. so we can't help you. So he had to run back. And they fought this battle, the Athenians and the people of Marathon, and they won the battle. And so they then sent him the next day after he's run to Sparta and back. They sent him to run to Athens and tell everyone of the victory. So he runs to Athens, 26.2 miles, tells everyone that they won, and then drops dead. And so wow. It is due to that they recreate that running to tell of the victory, and that is considered to be a marathon because he ran from Marathon to Athens, and that's the original marathon. And where that distance comes from, before I ever knew this story, I've heard a lot of people ask, why is a marathon 26.2 miles? And that's the reason. And we got to go stand in the place where he came to, which is where that stadium is built.
Yeah. So cool. In a typical ancient Greek tragedy. Typical tragedy. It's really cool too, because you can still run the original marathon, what they would quote call the original marathon, from Marathon, Greece to Athens, Greece. And they do it every year. I would love to do that one year. I just think that sounds so powerful. And yeah, I just think that would be pretty moving.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And if you don't want to run a full marathon, you can actually get into the Panathenaic Stadium and run in the stadium.
Yes. Oh yeah, and you had mentioned doing that, but they opened really late, didn't they?
Yes. So we were going to buy tickets and do it as part of our run. But they opened after the time that our walking tour started. We were like, well, we don't want to wait that late in the day to run, and then we really want to take this walking tour and learn as much as we can. So we ended up not getting to do it. But it was another one of those things that I was like, man, if we were just staying one more day, we could do this too.
Yeah.
But so you get to actually go run on the track in the stadium, which is pretty cool.
That's so cool. Well, and we always hear about like the Olympics and stuff like that. And where do they even get the name Olympics? Well, the Temple of Olympia was where all the gods lived in Greek mythology. And so that's kind of where they got Olympics from. One other thing that we did was we went to the Acropolis Museum. And so there's the Acropolis, up this hill with all this stuff on it. But then there's also this museum you can go to. It's got this amazing view of the actual Acropolis.
Right.
But we went there because it was really highly recommended. It's really nice, guys. Like they lay things out, like they lay out the Parthenon in a way that allows you to really see it's kind of like you're standing inside of an example of it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of standing inside the model. All of the walls, all the exterior walls are completely glass. So you get to see out just as if you were up on the hill inside this itself, because it had all these pillars, but it was opened up and everything. And so you see all the pillars inside this museum and all this stuff. It's really well done. It also allows you to see all of the really interesting stuff in air-conditioned space.
Yes, which was very nice.
Amazing. And then you could go, on top of the hill and kind of see the actual ruins themselves. But I just thought it was really cool to get to experience all that same stuff within the museum, more or less.
Yeah, and they have a lot of statues and things. So much like the Duomo in Florence, if you listen to our episode there, a lot of the original statues and pieces from the Parthenon are actually in the museum.
Yes.
And recreations are in place outside in the actual Parthenon. And so you get to see the real statues, and a lot of the stuff that was there, they're all very well marked. And so you kind of get to wander through and just be a person in the Parthenon.
Yeah.
And just experience it for yourself.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's actually so I was doing a Rick Steves audio tour of the Acropolis. So I'm like, listening to this audio tour while we're inside the museum, and it's really helpful. Way to kind of like gather some facts and stuff. Did you end up tuning into that too?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it was really helpful. And he actually is the one who told us that we were on Mars Hill that morning.
Yes.
So we just knew we were on this rock formation with this incredible view, and it felt significant, but we really didn't know what it was until we heard it in that tour, which was kind of crazy. So it's 6 hours later and we're like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Some of the other, and he just tells you all kinds of interesting facts, but one of my favorite things is how Athena Nike is the goddess of military victories. And that's where we get the Nike brand.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
It is fun, yeah. That comes from that, the goddess of victory. So cool. And I would definitely recommend that Rick Steves tour. You found it, and I was kind of skeptical, but he walks you through the whole museum, and you just listen to it and tells you, okay, now move to this part, and here's what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you're ready to proceed to here, and it's really simple to follow.
Yeah.
And amazing information.
And completely free and available wherever you get podcasts for the most part.
Yeah.
So all you need is your phone. You can also download it in advance. So if you're not getting good cell phone reception there, or if you will not have cell phone reception there, you could download on Wi-Fi and then use it when you arrive. So
yeah. So all we had to do was buy tickets to get into the museum, and then Tricky Rick provided the tour.
I forget that you call him Tricky Rick. We love you, Rick Steves. You'll never hear this, but we think that you're awesome.
Something sneaky about that guy.
What's your theory on Rick Steves?
He's got to be up to something.
Because he smiles a lot?
Nobody wears Lee jeans and just travels throughout Europe and is happy about everything. That's not a thing. He's up to something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to find it out.
You also say something about how he's well loved by the ladies, I feel like.
I'm just positioning myself to be one of the early opposition people in the Rick Steves documentary on Netflix. Whenever it comes out and it's all uncovered.
No,
they'll be talking to me. I'll be sitting in a trailer out in the woods, and I'll be like, you knew they was up to something. I'll be like, yep, I knew it.
Absolutely not. I am on the Rick Steves team, and I believe that he is so wholesome. And on the side, kind of in the credits sometimes, you'll notice that he'll actually drink beers and have a really good time with people, but he's so just an upstanding citizen in every country he visits.
Or so he would have you believe.
Well, I believe it. It. I'm sucked in.
When you went shopping, we went through a flea market on our tour, and our tour guide Stavros told us that was the place that everyone went to go shopping, and so you could not be left out of that experience.
I made a note of it, and I dropped a pin, and I was like, I'm coming back here later. and he said it was really important that you that you really bargain. So I was a little nervous about that, and I did some bargaining. It wasn't didn't really feel like I was scoring. And then I finally found this dress that I was like, okay, yes, this is a good one. I still think I paid too much for it, but I did get $10 off. So I feel good about that. And then it was kind of fun. Then I was like, oh, I don't even care if I walk away with anything. I just want to see if you'll agree to my price, because then I win.
You got addicted to haggling?
I kind of did, which I've always let you haggle for me. I do not like to do it, but I was kind of challenging myself to do it, really do it. And there were other dresses that I saw that I wanted, and now I look back and I'm like, man, I should have gotten $50 worth of dresses, because there was some great dresses, and everything that I brought back from Europe, I just adore.
Yeah.
And I can't find it anywhere. I can't even really find it online. And so I really wish I would have just bought the few more dresses. They didn't take up hardly any space because you're talking about these thin like dresses made of, rayon or something. But yeah, it was really fun too. I enjoy like wandering around and shopping with no agenda.
Yeah.
It's really fun for me. So
well, and that night we went to dinner. We wanted to get some street food, and we went to a place called Falafellas. And it was just okay.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
It was a little disappointing. There were a lot of other cool places that were like, man, we should have just been willing to spend a little more on dinner and go. Like we had, we'd done research too and thought it was going to be like this great place. Yeah. Yeah, it was just kind of a miss.
But it was like dry. The pita bread was a little dry. It was like not really flavorful. I was like, what? And it was our first Greek meal.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I was really bummed because I was absolutely looking forward to eating Greek food.
Mm-hmm.
And like, felt like I really dropped the ball.
Well, but you made up for it though by eating dragon eyes.
Oh, that's right. That is right. A little smoky scenario, guys.
So it's one of these stations where you eat these like basically ice balls and they're frozen with nitrogen, and so it makes your breath appear like a dragon's breath, and it's designed for little kids, and so obviously Hillary gravitated straight toward it.
Absolutely. I mean, it was incredible, and the footage is even better. So of all the things you're going to enjoy the most from the YouTube video, it's going to be seeing my smoke come out of my nostrils because it looks so cool. And it's not so much like eating ice as it is eating crunchy cereal. Like it really tasted like Kix. Like you're putting a giant piece of cereal in your mouth, but it's really cold. And it can give you a little bit of like a brain freeze, but it was super fun. Super fun. It goes quick though, so you gotta like eat it fast, or you lose all of the ability to smoke it. I guess you would say. But it made me think of my niece Everly, because she loves dragons. So I had to like send her a video of my nostrils flaring with smoke.
That's
too funny.
The next day leaving Athens was quite an adventure with the ferry system, but we'll save that for the next episode. You'll want to be sure to tune into that. Make sure you're subscribed so that you catch it. It was kind of a brutal start to that day.
We didn't know what we were doing,
but
we thought we'd go island hopping, and it was just a little more complicated than we thought.
Yes, so. we did make it to some islands. But it was not in the way that we had anticipated.
Yes. Tune in to hear us go to Paros, Mykonos, and Santorini.
Yes.
Throwing that out there as a little teaser so that you really come in and tune into that, because it's pretty incredible despite our troubles with the ferries. So, and we'll give you some tips on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll walk you through it. But before we set sail from Athens, we do have a few facts about Athens that I thought were kind of interesting, stuff that I really didn't know or hadn't considered before we went. Number one, it's Europe's oldest capital city and one of the oldest cities in the world. So it has been continuously inhabited since between 4,500 and 5,000 BC.
That's so old.
Just an ancient city.
And the oldest place we'd been since, other than that, was like, what, maybe?
Probably Rome.
Rome? Yeah.
Yeah. And just incredibly old ancient city, which is really cool. Its name comes from the goddess Athena. And the story goes that the people of Athens were going to name their city, and they were approached by the goddess Athena as well as the god Poseidon. And both of them wanted the people to name the city for them, and so they gave the city two gifts. Poseidon gave them a fountain of salt water because he's the god of the ocean, and Athena gave them an olive tree. And they decided that the olive tree was the better gift, And so they named their city Athens rather than Poseidonopolis or something like that. So that is kind of an interesting origin story for the name. It is the birthplace of democracy, and it has experienced almost all forms of government at one time or another.
That's interesting.
So it's been invaded and taken over and just developed along the way and has been governed in all ways, which is a crazy thought.
Yeah. I loved one of the facts that you found about Athens being over, that it sees sunshine more than 300 days a year.
Yes.
That's my kind of city.
You do love that, don't you?
I love sunshine, so it makes me so happy.
Yeah. And more English is spoken in Greece than in any other European non-English speaking countries.
That is really surprising.
Yeah. So even like France or Spain or Italy, there's a larger percentage of Greeks who speak English than there are of English speakers in those other countries.
That is so funny because I worried so much about the language barrier coming to Greece.
I remember going into our trip, I was like, okay, Czech Republic and Greece, we might have problems because we don't know any of the language. But in Greece, it's not really a worry. I think over 50% of Greek people are fluent in English.
Well, there are some things people may want to do that we did not get to do.
Yep.
So let's rattle those off real quick. If you only have one day, Rick Steves recommends that you go to the Acropolis Museum, the Acropolis, and the National Archaeological Museum. We only had one day and we did one of those. But also I think there's so much value in like shopping. No, seriously, but like shopping and being in the culture, going to a coffee shop, enjoying yourself. I think there's a lot to say for that.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like we stopped and got Greek yogurt for lunch.
Yeah.
And we had such a great time. It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I would absolutely regret not trying Greek yogurt in Greece.
Yeah.
So things like that, you got to kind of fit that into. But he mentioned visiting the museum first, then going to the Parthenon. And the British Museum has the famous Elgin marbles, which were stolen. And Greece is hoping that their new Acropolis Museum will compel Britain to give them back. I thought that was just like this funny little tidbit that I was like, huh, that's so funny. I feel like we'd heard that in multiple, like maybe heard that from our tour guide, also heard it in Rick Steves' tour and just heard it several times. So it's on.
Yeah, it's kind of a big campaign to get that to happen.
And one thing I would recommend doing is they have a lot of handmade sandals that they do in Greece, that they make in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not buy some, even though I needed sandals. I should have bought some. I needed some. Remember how I broke my sandals in San Sebastian? My flip-flops, and I was walking around barefooted with one barefoot.
Remember how you brought your Crocs?
Yeah, but that wasn't playing out that well. So I needed sandals. So that's one thing I would do differently is I would buy sandals in Greece. Faux show.
Gotcha.
The other thing is I would really love to do the running at the stadium.
Yeah.
Going for a run at the stadium I think would be a really cool thing to do. So just ideas for other people as they plan their vacation to Athens. And I would just recommend Athens too because you probably are going to have to hop a flight that's going to take you to Athens. And then if you're headed to an island, I feel like a lot of people just want to see the islands and they're amazing, but don't discount Athens. It is really something that we found to be a pretty cool city.
Yeah, definitely worth your time. And if you are going to Greece, the islands are so cool, and that's what a lot of people go for, but they have a completely different vibe. So I feel like you could mix your vacation up a little bit by doing a few days in Athens and then do the islands, or vice versa, maybe Athens on your way back. But don't sleep on Athens. It's worth your time.
That's right. So, you guys, you can go find the video out on YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok, Facebook. We are in most of the places that you will find us. And we also have a new way for you to reach out to us.
That's right. We want you to connect directly with us and to your fellow listeners by sharing your travel insights and stories. So if you have some travel tips, maybe you've been to Greece and you've experienced some cool things that you want to share with everyone, what we would ask for you to do is to send those stories to us so that we can share them. And you can do that at our email, which is travelfomopodcast@gmail.com. You can either type up those stories and we'll read them for you, or you can record a voice memo on your phone and just attach that to an email, and we can plug it right into the podcast itself so you can share your story in your own words. We are so excited to hear from you and share with everyone else. So please, please, please take advantage of that. Again, that is travelfomopodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. Okay, guys, go plan your next vacation because life is short.
Wander well.